They flew first class to Dubai while I stayed behind with a chore list that looked like a prison schedule. I remember standing in the driveway that morning, still wearing sweatpants, watching their Uber vanish around the corner like a getaway car. My mom didn't even hug me goodbye, just rolled down the window and yelled, "Don't forget to scrub the grout in the upstairs shower this time." Then she snapped her sunglasses on and turned her attention back to Madison, who was live streaming the whole damn departure like it was the Grammys. The list was laminated. I swear to God. Not handwritten, not typed and printed, no, she'd actually gone out of her way to laminate it, like she thought I'd try to destroy it in a fit of rebellion. A little overboard, considering she didn't even trust me enough to have plans. There were 22 items on that list, and they weren't normal teenager chores like feed the dog or take out trash. No, we're talking clean out the garage and organize tools by size, repaint the guest bathroom, and my personal favorite, pressure wash the back fence. She left me a rented power washer in the garage just to make sure I couldn't claim I didn't have the tools. That list wasn't about keeping the house clean. It was about keeping me busy enough to not notice that my own mother didn't think I deserved a break. While they were probably sipping champagne at 30,000 feet, I was elbows deep in toilet water trying to scrub under the rim of the downstairs bathroom like it owed me money. By day 3, I had stopped checking their Instagram stories. Madison's obnoxious selfies next to camels and infinity pools weren't even what hurt the most. What killed me were the little moments, the laughter in the background, the beach photos where my mom had her arm around Madison like she was the only child who mattered. Like I died years ago and no one had the decency to tell me. Let me back up for a second. I'm Logan, 17, senior year, and until this week, I'd always done what I was told. Mostly. I got decent grades, never got arrested, didn't vape or steal or bring girls home. I stayed invisible, quiet, out of the way. I figured if I didn't give her a reason to hate me, maybe, just maybe, she'd love me the way she loved Madison. But as the week dragged on, and I checked off chore after chore, something inside me started to rot. Not break, not crack, just rot, slow and ugly, like meat left too long in the sun. The house was quiet in a way that made my skin crawl. Too many empty rooms. Too much space for my thoughts to echo. I'd be scrubbing baseboards and suddenly think about how she always made excuses for Madison's bad grades, but berated me for getting a B. Or how she bought Madison a whole new wardrobe every semester while I wore the same hoodie since sophomore year. Or how she told her friends that raising a boy is like raising a golden retriever, you just pray he doesn't wreck the furniture. On Thursday afternoon, I was folding laundry. Yes, actual folding, because that was task number 16 on the goddamn list, when I found one of Madison's dumb little crop tops tangled up in a towel. I went into her room to hang it up, because if I left it lying around, my mom would accuse me of snooping and probably tell everyone I was some pervert. Her room was a teenage influencer's paradise. Pink LED lights, white fur rug, a giant ring light, and a wall of shelves filled with skincare products that probably cost more than my first car will. And then I saw it, my mom's closet door cracked open. I don't even know why I noticed. Maybe I heard something shift, or maybe I was just looking for an excuse to get out of Madison's synthetic perfume cloud. But I stepped into my mom's room, bare feet on the hardwood, and pulled the closet door open all the way. Inside was the usual mess: yoga pants, mismatched shoes, a shoebox full of receipts. But tucked in the back, half hidden behind a rolled-up yoga mat, was something weird. A safe. Like a real one. Small, black, the kind you'd see in hotel rooms or drug dealer movies. I didn't know she had one. I'd cleaned this closet before, hell, organizing it had been chore number 8 last spring, but this was new. My stomach dropped. Not in fear, exactly, more like curiosity laced with a sense of being violated. Like I'd just found out she had a secret I was never meant to see. I stared at it for a long time, as if it might blink first. There was a keypad, no keyhole. I tried her birthday, no luck. I tried mine, just to see, still nothing. Then, without even thinking, I tried Madison's. For digits, her birth month and day, beep 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 beep, and click. It unlocked. I didn't open it. Not yet. I just stood there with my hand hovering over the latch, heart pounding like I'd just stolen something. Maybe I had. Maybe just knowing the code was already a betrayal. I closed it back up, turned off the light, and shut the closet. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of the safe, not entirely, but because for the first time in a long time, I realized I didn't care what would happen if she found out I'd seen it. I was starting to understand that the worst she could do wasn't grounding me, or yelling, or calling me ungrateful. The worst she'd already done. She forgot I was a person. And now, I was starting to forget too. I don't know what it is about silence, but sometimes it screams louder than any shouting match you've ever had. The kind of silence that doesn't come from peace or calm, but from being completely ignored, like you could set the curtains on fire and still not get a damn text back. That's what the house felt like, just a long, suffocating breath that no one bothered to release. Every time I picked up a broom or sprayed down a counter, all I could think was how it was always me. Me who stayed. Me who cleaned. Me who was never invited. By Sunday, the house was sparkling. The garage was organized by tool type, the bathroom grout was whiter than any politician's teeth, and the refrigerator had been emptied, scrubbed, and reorganized like a Pinterest board. I should have felt accomplished, but instead I felt like a damn housemaid. You ever look around your own house and realize you don't even leave fingerprints? Like you don't actually live there, you just maintain it for someone else's comfort? Every chore on that laminated list felt like a reminder of what I wasn't. I wasn't the kid she bragged about. I wasn't the one with the shiny straight-A report card pinned on the fridge, or the one with cheer competitions, or the one who got spa days and new outfits for vacations. I was the one who shoveled the snow, mowed the lawn, made dinner when she was too overwhelmed to cook, and got grounded for forgetting to unload the dishwasher once. I remembered this one time, 2 years ago, my 16th birthday. She said she was too tired to do anything special, so we stayed in and ordered pizza. Nothing else. No cake, no card, no happy birthday post on Facebook, not even a candle jammed into a cupcake. Meanwhile, last year for Madison's 11th, they rented a damn party bus and drove around town like some low-budget Kardashian shoot. You think you forget that stuff, but you don't. It just buries itself deeper, like shrapnel you can't dig out. That safe wouldn't leave my head. I kept trying to brush it off like it didn't matter, but every time I walked past her room, I felt it calling to me. Not in a paranoid way, not like it was whispering secrets, but like it was daring me to open it again. You ever stand in front of a closed door and feel like opening it might change everything? Yeah, that's what this was. So that afternoon, after knocking out task number 16, vacuuming under the couch cushions, I went back into her room. I closed the blinds, locked the door, and knelt down in front of the closet like it was some twisted kind of altar. I stared at the keypad, hesitating for maybe 5 seconds before punching in her birthday again, just to be sure. Nothing. I tried mine. Still nothing. Then, just like before, I entered Madison's month and day. Beep. Green light. Click. Open. This time, I opened it. It wasn't packed, but it wasn't empty either. There were 4 envelopes full of cash, stacked and labeled like a damn accountant packed this thing. One said travel, another emergency, another tuition, and the last just said M. Next to them was a small black box that looked like it belonged in a jewelry ad. Inside were earrings, a gold chain, and a bracelet I'd seen Madison wear before. So much for just a cheap knockoff. But what caught my eye was the folder. Manila. Thick. Sealed with one of those old-school metal clasps. Across the front, in bold black marker, it just said legal. That's it. No label, no description, no context. I didn't open it, not then. I was too scared, or maybe just not ready. But the moment I saw it, something clicked not in my head, but in my chest. Like a gear had shifted. Like I just found the edge of a map, and I was either about to fall off or find something I was never meant to know. I put everything back exactly as it was. Closed the safe, locked it, covered it with the yoga mat, walked out like nothing happened. But inside, I wasn't the same. That wasn't just a safe full of cash and family heirlooms, that was proof. Proof that she didn't trust me. Proof that she was hiding something. And maybe the worst part? Proof that she had plans for Madison that didn't include me. You ever get that feeling like you've been living in a play someone else wrote, but you were never cast in the lead role? Just the stagehand, moving props around while everyone else gets applause? That's how I felt right then. Like I'd spent 17 years rehearsing someone else's script and finally realized I was never gonna get a speaking part. Did your parents ever make you feel like the extra kid? Like you were just there to clean up after the favorite child? Let me know in the comments, 'cause damn, I can't be the only one. That night, I couldn't sleep. Again. I lay there thinking about what would happen if I just left. Not ran away like some dumb teenager, but left strategically. Cleanly. Just exited the story. Would she even notice? Would she even care? Or would she just laminate a new list for the next kid if she ever got bored of Madison? I started playing it out in my head, not like a crime or a runaway fantasy, but more like a thought experiment. Just curiosity. Just seeing what it might look like if I didn't come back from a grocery run. If the house stayed spotless, but I didn't. Not a crime. Just a way out. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself. I told myself it was just an experiment, nothing more than a little test of personal freedom, a harmless what-if scenario that had nothing to do with theft or rebellion or revenge. I said it out loud to the empty house while brushing my teeth, while taking out the trash, even while polishing the damn banister like a butler in some dusty old mansion. It's just an experiment, I whispered, like repeating it would protect me from whatever line I was thinking about crossing. But the truth was, it had already started the moment I opened that safe and saw her priorities lined up in neat little envelopes. On Tuesday night, after spending 6 straight hours cleaning the garage like a goddamn hired hand, I went back to the safe. Not to steal, just to look. That was the story I fed myself. My hands were steady, too steady, like my body already knew what I was going to do before I did. I punched in Madison's birthday, heard the little electronic sigh of compliance, and opened it. No guilt. No hesitation. I grabbed one envelope, the one marked travel, and opened it like I was unwrapping a truth I wasn't ready for. I didn't count the bills, just peeled off 3 20s and folded them into my back pocket. I figured $60 wouldn't even make a dent. That envelope had enough green in it to fund a weekend in Vegas, and I was borrowing lunch money. The next morning, I walked to a diner 3 miles away just because I could. I ordered a greasy burger with bacon and 2 overcooked eggs and the thickest chocolate milkshake they could make without violating health codes. I tipped the waitress $20 just to watch her face light up like no one had ever treated her like she mattered. It felt stupid and reckless and beautiful. That first bite of bacon was the best thing I'd tasted in years. For an hour, I wasn't a forgotten son or a house servant or a backup plan. I was just a guy in a booth. Nobody special, nobody watched. And in that hour, I realized something that should have scared me a lot more than it did. No one was looking for me. No texts. No missed calls. No guilt bombs from mom. It was like I'd vanished and the universe had collectively shrugged. That's when the experiment became something else. I started calling it testing the boundaries, like I was some scientist pushing the limits of a theory. Every day I went a little further. I opened her laptop and read her emails. I looked through her search history. I found receipts for luxury spa treatments, facials in 5-star hotels, and designer crap she bought Madison in Dubai, handbags that cost more than the used car I'd been saving up for since freshman year. Meanwhile, I was still patching the hole in my sneakers with duct tape. There wasn't a single charge with my name on it. Not one note about Logan's college fund, or senior trip, or graduation gift. It was like she'd already written me off, like I was some failed first draft she was too embarrassed to admit she ever cared about. Madison's name was everywhere though, tied to every plan, every dinner reservation, every expensive little purchase that said, "You are the star of this story." I wasn't even listed on the return addresses. That kind of quiet erasure? It changes you. On Friday, Tom stopped by. No warning, just that pathetic knock he always did, soft and lazy, like he didn't really want anyone to answer. He stood there in his fake leather jacket, smiling too wide, holding a grocery bag full of some random crap like I was going to invite him in for tea. I told him Mom and Madison wouldn't be back until Sunday. He said, "Yeah, I know," and stepped inside anyway. He looked around like he was casing the place, not really paying attention to anything I said, barely meeting my eyes. Then I noticed it, he kept glancing down the hall toward Mom's bedroom. Not just once, not casually. Over and over, like his brain was trying to figure out how fast he could get to that safe without making it look like he gave a damn. I offered him a soda just to see if he'd say no, and he did, fast, like he couldn't wait to leave. He said he was just checking in, but we both knew he was lying. I don't know if he knew about the money or the folder or both, but I knew this much: he wasn't here for me. He hadn't even asked how I was doing, didn't even pretend. He just mumbled something about how he was heading to the hardware store and bolted like the house was on fire. That night, I opened the safe again. I don't even remember making the decision. It was like muscle memory at that point. I stared at the envelopes, considered taking another 60, maybe 100, just to see what it felt like. But then my hand drifted to the manila folder, the one marked legal, the one I'd ignored last time like it had teeth. I undid the metal clasp and peeled it open, expecting bills or insurance papers or something boring and adult. What I found wasn't boring, and it sure as hell wasn't expected. I froze. My breath stopped. My hands trembled in a way they hadn't when I took the money. Inside that folder wasn't just legal stuff, it was something else entirely. Something that would flip everything I thought I knew about my family on its head. And I was only on the first page. I don't know what I thought would be inside that folder. Maybe bank statements, maybe a will, maybe some paperwork explaining where the money came from and where it was going. But what I actually found hit harder than anything I was ready for. I sat down on the floor right there in the middle of my mother's bedroom, surrounded by the smell of her cheap lavender detergent and the silence of a house that hadn't heard real laughter in years. I took the first document out slowly, already feeling the weight of it before I even saw the words. At the top of the page, in thick black letters, it said Adoption Decree. And below that, in clean, clinical font, the name Madison Grace Reynolds. My sister. Or at least the girl I had been calling my sister for the last 8 years without ever knowing the truth. I blinked again, and stared harder, hoping it was a mistake. Hoping maybe I'd picked up the wrong folder or was reading something from a dream I'd accidentally walked into while sleepwalking. But no, there was my mom's signature. There was Tom's too. There were court stamps, witness names, dates. It was all real. I flipped through more pages, each one digging the knife in deeper. Madison had been adopted when I was 9. That same year, everything changed in our house. Mom stopped drinking, started working out obsessively, got laser-focused on appearances. It was the year she threw away every photo of my dad, boxed up anything that reminded her of the years before Tom, and started redecorating the house like we were contestants on some shitty HGTV show. That was the year I learned how to do my own laundry and stopped asking for bedtime hugs because she was always too tired or already in bed. And now I knew why. She had pressed the reset button on her life, like my childhood was some ugly old wallpaper she could strip off the walls and forget about. I wasn't the son of the new version of her, I was leftover from the old one, the part she didn't want anyone to see. Madison wasn't just her favorite. She was the do-over. The perfect blank slate my mother could mold, parade around, brag about on social media without anyone asking hard questions about where she came from or why I always looked like I was standing in the background of my own family photos. I should have been angry, but what I felt was worse, confused, hollow, betrayed in a way that didn't have a name. I sat there with the folder in my lap, breathing like I'd just run a marathon, thinking back to all the times things never quite added up. The way Madison called Tom Dad even though they'd only been together a few years. The way Karen always described Madison as a gift or a miracle, but never said that about me. The way she treated Madison's scraped knees like medical emergencies and treated my broken wrist like an inconvenience when I fell off my bike in middle school. It was all right there, all the clues I should have seen, but never did because I was too busy trying to be good enough. Trying to be obedient. Trying to be loved by a woman who clearly saw me as a walking reminder of her past mistakes. My life wasn't a home, it was a cover-up. And I was the evidence she hadn't quite figured out how to get rid of yet. I put the papers back in the folder, tucked everything back into the safe exactly the way I'd found it, and closed the closet. I stood there for a long time in the doorway, staring at her bed, trying to imagine how many nights she'd slept soundly while I cried in mine. I wasn't going to yell or break things or leave some dramatic note. That's not how this part would go. If she could rewrite the story of her life, then so could I. But first, I needed to make sure I remembered all the details, every lie, every omission, every time she told me I was too sensitive when I noticed the way she looked at Madison like the sun rose out of her little pink sneakers. So I started documenting everything. I opened a blank journal, one of those old composition notebooks I hadn't touched since 8th grade, and began writing down every memory I could dig up. I wrote in long, messy lines that bled off the page, memories of birthdays forgotten, punishments doubled, weekends spent scrubbing instead of celebrating. Then I started filming myself. Just little clips on my phone, no filters, no edits. Just my face and my voice and whatever thoughts poured out in the moment. I called them evidence, not because I planned on using them in court or some dramatic confrontation, but because I needed something to remind me later that I wasn't crazy. It's funny how once you realize someone's been lying to you, your whole memory starts to rewrite itself in real time. You see scenes differently. You hear tone in their voices that you never noticed before. You replay old conversations and suddenly hear the meanings between the lines. I was chasing that, unraveling it. Not to hurt her. Not to punish anyone. Just so I could understand how I became so invisible in my own home. The more I wrote, the more I remembered. And the more I remembered, the more something inside me started to shift. I wasn't just angry, I was done. Done waiting for her to see me. Done pretending I was okay with being a footnote in her new life. And done playing the role of the forgotten son who quietly cleaned the gutters while the golden child got Instagrammed on a camel in the Middle East. This wasn't about the money anymore. This was about leaving. Not running away. Not a tantrum. But an exit. And I was already halfway out the door. It didn't happen all at once like in movies, where the kid has a breakdown, screams into a pillow, and packs a bag while some dramatic music plays in the background. It was slower, more methodical. Almost surgical in how precise everything became once the decision had finally settled in my bones. I didn't cry, I didn't panic, and I didn't second-guess myself anymore. After days of pretending I was just testing boundaries, I knew exactly what I was doing. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the consequences because I knew the worst thing had already happened. I didn't matter. Not really. Not to her. Not in the way a child should matter to a parent. I started with my room, not the way you tidy up before company arrives, but the kind of cleaning you do when you're erasing evidence. Every drawer got emptied, every notebook scanned for anything identifying, every personal item sorted into 2 piles, leave behind and take. The leave behind pile was bigger than I thought it would be. There's something about staring at your belongings from the perspective of escape that makes you realize how little of it actually defines you. I kept the essentials, 2 shirts, 1 hoodie, a pair of jeans that didn't look like hell, some cash, the burner phone I bought in a convenience store 15 miles away, and a lighter, though I wasn't sure what I needed it for. It just felt necessary, like a tool in a movie about someone disappearing. The safe opened with the same code it always had, Madison's birthday, the damn key to everything in this house. I stared at the contents for a long time before touching anything. The envelopes were still stacked in their perfect order, still labeled with her absurd precision, like she was preparing for some financial apocalypse. I took every dollar, every folded bill, every shiny coin, but I didn't touch the folder this time. That folder didn't belong to me, not because it wasn't part of my story, but because I didn't need it anymore to know what I already knew. That folder was her lie to carry, her secret to protect, and leaving it behind was my way of saying, "You live with this." I put the safe back exactly the way I found it, the yoga mat carefully draped over the top, the closet door barely ajar like I'd never even been there. From there, it was just logistics. I powered down my laptop and wiped the hard drive. I deleted every social media account, not just deactivated, but deleted, scorched earth style. I erased my email inbox and wiped my phone clean of messages, photos, and contacts, leaving nothing behind but a looping audio file that I'd recorded earlier that morning. It was short, less than 30 seconds, but I'd practiced it until my voice didn't crack. "I'm not your son anymore. I was, but you lost me. You don't deserve this. Neither does she." I left that file playing on a loop, plugged into the charger, sitting on my desk like a middle finger in digital form. I set the thermostat to drop the house to 50 degrees by morning, just enough to make it cold and uncomfortable when they walked in, just enough to make the silence in the air feel like punishment. Then I unlocked the front door. I didn't leave a note. I didn't write some poetic farewell on the bathroom mirror. I just stood there for a second in the doorway, looking back at the place that had been a prison made of drywall and forced smiles, and stepped outside into the cool night without a single look over my shoulder. No one was watching me leave. There were no witnesses, no friends to wave goodbye, no mother calling after me in tears. It was just me and the sound of the wind and the quiet hum of the world not giving a damn. I walked for what felt like hours, cutting through neighborhoods I'd only seen from the backseat of her car, passing dimly lit houses where kids probably still got tucked in at night by parents who actually knew their favorite color or what music they liked. It was like walking through a museum of lives I'd never had access to, lives I didn't even envy anymore, just observed with the detached clarity of someone who knew he'd been handed a busted compass and told to find north anyway. At the bus station, I used the burner to send a single anonymous text to my real number, the one still sitting at home in my charger, playing my farewell message over and over. It said, "You don't deserve this. Neither does she." I figured if she ever got curious and looked at the text log, that message might be the only real thing I left her. No explanations. No apologies. Just the truth. I bought a ticket with cash to a place far enough away that no one would think to look, but not so far that it felt like the end of the world. I didn't need to run forever. Just far enough to start writing my story in my own damn voice, without anyone editing the lines. The bus smelled like oil and regret, the kind of scent that sticks in your hoodie and makes you wonder how many other kids had sat in that same seat with the same broken heart and the same desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, life was better somewhere else. I didn't cry. I didn't even sleep. I just sat there gripping my backpack like it was the last piece of my old life I hadn't burned to the ground. And when the sun started creeping up over the horizon, casting pale orange light across the interstate, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time: freedom. Not joy, not relief, not some dramatic movie moment where everything suddenly made sense. Just quiet, hard-earned, undeniable freedom. I didn't know where I'd end up, but I knew exactly what I'd left behind. The first thing Karen noticed when she walked through the front door wasn't the cold air or the eerie silence or even the slightly ajar closet door. It was the stillness, that too clean, too perfect stillness that doesn't exist in a home where someone actually lives. Madison stormed past her without thinking, dragging her pink suitcase over the hardwood floor like a diva returning from tour, already shouting about her phone needing a charge. But Karen stood frozen in the entryway, one perfectly manicured hand still clutching the Louis Vuitton bag Tom had given her 2 birthdays ago, her eyes scanning the walls, the floor, the light, like she was waiting for something to jump out and bite her. She didn't say Logan, or I'm home, or anything you might expect from a mother returning from a week-long international vacation. She didn't ask where he was or call out for him to help unload the car. Instead, she walked straight down the hallway to her bedroom, heels clicking like a metronome of anxiety, and flung open the closet door with the kind of speed that said she already knew something was wrong. The safe was closed, but not locked, not the way she left it. The yoga mat had shifted. The balance of her carefully curated disarray was just slightly off, and she could smell it. She could feel it. Like someone had rearranged the dust in her world and left fingerprints on the air itself. She dropped to her knees, punched in Madison's birthday because of course that was the code, and the door clicked open. It didn't take long for her to realize what was missing. The envelopes were gone. Every last bill, every last bundle of cash she had stacked and labeled like she was prepping for financial war. But the folder was still there, resting at the bottom like an afterthought, undisturbed and untouched. And that, more than anything, rattled her. Because the folder was the only thing Logan had left behind that truly mattered, and she didn't have to open it to know he'd read it. He had to have read it. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She stood up slowly, walked out of the room, and picked up her phone like she was placing a call to a contractor about a leaky faucet. She dialed Tom first, told him to come over, told him it was urgent, didn't explain why. Tom didn't ask for clarification. He just said he'd be there in 20 minutes and hung up. She called Uncle Rick next, not because she wanted to, but because she knew he'd find out eventually, and it was better to control the narrative from the start. When the police arrived 2 hours later, Karen answered the door in full makeup, her hair pulled back, her face expressionless. She told them someone had broken into her safe, stolen money, and likely taken off with it. When they asked about her son, about whether he might have been involved or seen anything suspicious, she shrugged, actually shrugged, and said he probably ran away. He's done it before. Which, for the record, he hadn't. Not once. Ever. But the cop just nodded like that made perfect sense, jotted something down in his little notebook, and didn't press further. There was no missing person report filed. No photo handed over. No timeline provided. Just vague gestures, half-truths, and an underlying chill that made even the seasoned officer pause in the doorway before he left. Madison, meanwhile, didn't ask about her brother once. She was too busy posting photos from Dubai with exaggerated captions and made-up stories about what really happened at the camel sanctuary. She floated through the house like nothing had changed, blasting music, texting friends, complaining about the cold thermostat setting, which she blamed on the dumb old system. Uncle Rick was the only one who looked like he might throw up. He arrived wearing the same battered leather jacket he'd owned since before Logan was born, eyes squinting like he hadn't slept in days, voice low and careful as he asked Karen, "Where's Logan?" Karen, of course, gave him the same line she gave the cops. He ran off, probably pissed about something stupid. He always was dramatic, you know how boys are. Rick didn't buy it. He stood in the kitchen, staring at her like he was waiting for the real version of her to peel off the skin and confess something human. Eventually, he asked about the folder. Just said, "You still have it?" like it was some casual inquiry about a casserole dish. Karen stiffened, paused, and then said, "It's nothing. Just old documents." Rick didn't argue. He just looked at her, really looked at her, and then nodded like he knew better than to ask again. Before he left, he stood in the hallway staring at Logan's door, which was slightly ajar, revealing a room that had been stripped of life but not of clues. He reached for the doorknob, but Karen snapped, "Don't. It's private." And Rick, for all his concern, let go. That night, after the house had gone dark and Karen retreated into her bathroom to soak in a bubble bath and sip overpriced Chardonnay like none of this touched her, Rick sat in his car for a full hour before pulling out his phone. He dialed Logan's number, not the burner, not knowing it existed, just the regular one, and left a message. "Hey kid, I don't know where you are, but I know something's wrong. Your mom's lying. I don't know what about yet, but I can feel it. If you get this, just let me know you're okay. You don't have to say where. Just let me know. He hung up, stared out into the dark, and didn't drive away for another 30 minutes. He didn't know Logan was already gone. He didn't know the room was empty, not just of things, but of the person who had once tried so damn hard to believe he still belonged there. And Karen? She didn't grieve. She made a hair appointment. Because that's what mattered now: presentation, image, damage control. Not the son who had finally stopped waiting to be loved. The payphone sat under a flickering gas station light on the edge of a two-lane road that seemed to stretch endlessly into the kind of empty that only exists in the middle of nowhere. Just truck noise in the distance and a broken vending machine humming like a dying animal. I held the receiver in my hand like it was made of something fragile, something dangerous. And I stood there staring at the greasy keypad for a full minute before I finally dialed the number I'd memorized years ago, but never used for anything more serious than a birthday call. Rick picked up on the third ring with a voice that sounded like it hadn't slept in days. Hello? I didn't speak right away. I wasn't sure what to say. Part of me thought he might hang up, or worse, not recognize me, even though he was probably the only one who ever really paid attention when I talked. After a few seconds of silence, I said his name quietly, like it was a confession. Uncle Rick. There was a pause, just a beat, and then the breath left his body in one long, trembling exhale. Logan. Jesus Christ. Where the hell are you? I'm okay, I said, and for the first time since I'd walked out of that house, I realized that was actually true. Not good, not happy, not whole, but okay. Alive. Breathing. Outside the cage. I'm safe. I can't tell you where. Not yet. Another pause, longer this time, and then his voice dropped into something lower, more serious, like he already knew not to push too hard. She told the cops you ran away. No missing person report. Nothing. Just shrugged and went on with her damn day. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. I believed it. I knew exactly how that scene must have played out: Karen twisting the story to fit her script, Madison scrolling TikTok with the heat turned back up, the safe relocked like nothing had ever been touched. I figured she would, I said, keeping my tone flat, neutral, like I didn't still have 1,000 gallons of rage boiling under the surface. That's why I need you not to tell anyone we talked. Especially her. I just needed to hear a voice that wasn't lying. Rick didn't speak for a moment, and then he said something that caught me completely off guard. I knew something was off, he muttered, almost to himself. I've known for a while, but I couldn't put my finger on it. That house, that safe, that kid, Madison. None of it made sense. I leaned against the wall of the phone booth, the metal cold through my jacket, my fingers tightening around the receiver. What do you mean? Rick cleared his throat, and the sound was sharp, like he was preparing to say something he'd carried around for years. She's not who she says she is, Logan. Your mom. Karen. Not the woman I grew up with. She changed. Started chasing image and money like they were the only things that mattered. After your dad left, it got worse. You remember that year she suddenly got clean, and then Tom moved in and Madison showed up out of nowhere. Yeah, I said, my voice low, already knowing the punchline but needing to hear it from someone else. She was broke, Rick said, blunt as ever. I mean real broke. Drowning in debt, collection notices, defaulting on the house. I tried to help, but she pushed me away, said she had a plan. And then boom. This miracle kid appears, and suddenly she's got money for private schools, luxury trips, new cars. It didn't add up. I closed my eyes, the truth forming a full, grotesque shape in my mind. I didn't need to hear the rest to know where this was going, but I let him finish because I needed to feel how heavy it really was. She adopted Madison for the money, Rick said. That kid came with a trust fund. Her biological father, Karen's old fiancé, died in a car crash. Left everything to the girl, but only if she was raised by someone within his will. Karen was listed. Some legal technicality. She swooped in like a vulture. Got custody. Got paid. And there it was. The final nail in the coffin. The undeniable proof that I wasn't just forgotten, I was excluded by design. I wasn't the one she built her new life around. I was the leftover piece from a story she desperately wanted to erase. So I was never part of the plan, I said quietly, more to myself than to him. I was just still there. Rick's voice softened then, like he could hear the air leaving my lungs. You were always part of my plan, Logan. You hear me? You didn't imagine all this. You're not crazy. You're not wrong. I didn't speak. I just let those words sit with me because they were the first real ones I'd heard in a long time. I want you to come back, he said eventually. Not to her house. Come here. We'll figure it out. Not yet, I said, and my voice cracked just a little at the edge. I've got things to figure out. Stuff I need to work through. Maybe I'll write a book, put it all down in one place. Call it The Kid Who Wasn't in the Picture. Rick gave a short laugh, the kind that didn't quite reach his throat. Just stay safe, okay? Wherever you are. I will, I said, and I meant it. Then I hung up. No goodbye. No promises. Just a quiet click and the hollow echo of the receiver settling back into its cradle. I stepped out of the phone booth into the sharp wind of early evening, the sun sinking like a stone behind the trees, shadows stretching long across the road. And then I felt it, that unmistakable tingle on the back of my neck, that primal little alarm bell that goes off when you're not alone anymore. Someone was watching me. Not moving. Not close. But there. And suddenly, freedom didn't feel quite so free. Karen sat on the edge of Logan's bed like it was a relic from a house she barely remembered living in, her hands resting in her lap, eyes fixed on the closet door that hung slightly open, revealing nothing but a bare rod and a single empty hanger that swung gently every time the AC kicked on. The room was spotless, not in a comforting, clean sheets kind of way, but in that eerie, too quiet, museum of a person who doesn't live here anymore kind of way. There were no shoes on the floor, no laundry in the hamper, no cluttered desk or posters or loose change on the dresser, just the still air of absence, thick and silent and accusing. She didn't cry. She didn't call his name or start pulling drawers open in a panic like a mother in a drama film might have done. She just sat there in that freshly made bed, surrounded by the ghost of a son she'd never really bothered to know. Every time her eyes drifted to the closet, she seemed to flinch, just slightly, as if the open space inside was staring back at her, judging her, telling her what she already knew but wasn't brave enough to say out loud, that Logan had left her. Not because he was troubled, not because he was unstable, but because she'd given him every reason to go. Down the hall, Madison was lying belly down on the couch, legs swaying lazily in the air, completely absorbed in her phone as she filmed a Get Ready With Me video and complained to her followers about the lighting in their house. She hadn't asked about Logan once. She didn't seem to notice the silence he'd left behind or care that no one had cooked dinner in 3 nights. To her, Logan had always been a shadow in the corner of the family photo, someone you cropped out for better symmetry. Tom had moved out 2 days after the police visit, muttering something about needing space and not signing up for this kind of chaos. He packed his things in silence, avoided eye contact, and didn't even say goodbye to Madison. Karen hadn't stopped him. She didn't ask him to stay. The moment the door clicked shut behind him, she walked to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of wine, and closed all the blinds like she was shutting out the world. The police never followed up, never filed a report, never even called to see if Logan had turned up. Maybe because Karen didn't press, or maybe because, deep down, she didn't want him found unless it was convenient. Maybe she knew she didn't have the right to demand answers after all the years she'd spent giving none herself. Across state lines, in a rundown motel with stained carpets and buzzing lights, Logan sat at a chipped desk beneath a flickering lamp, scribbling furiously into a spiral-bound notebook like he was trying to carve the truth into paper before it evaporated from his mind. The room smelled like old cigarettes and burnt coffee, but it was his now, his space, his silence, his freedom. The money from the safe was hidden inside the lining of his backpack. The fake ID sat next to the television remote, and the name on it didn't belong to him yet, but he was starting to get used to it. Every time he said it out loud, it felt a little more real. He'd already filled half the notebook with memories, confessions, questions, and fragments of scenes he couldn't forget, moments that had once felt small but now stood out like blinking red lights. The time Karen skipped his middle school play to take Madison to a mani-pedi appointment. The way she laughed too hard at jokes that humiliated him in front of Tom. The way she never once said she was proud of him, even when he brought home a B+ in a subject she told him he'd fail. He stared at a faded photo taped to the inside of the notebook, one of those old glossy prints that used to come back in drugstore envelopes, showing a young version of himself with a gap-toothed smile and dirt under his fingernails, sitting on his mother's lap while she smiled wide for the camera. He was 5 in that picture. She was still trying back then. Or maybe she was just better at pretending. He held the picture between his fingers, stared at it for a long time, then tore it straight down the middle without hesitation and let the halves fall into the trash can next to the desk. He didn't feel good about it. He didn't feel victorious. He felt like someone who had finished digging a grave and now didn't know what to do with the shovel. He looked in the mirror above the dresser and barely recognized himself, not because he looked different, but because, for the first time, there wasn't a single trace of apology in his eyes. Maybe this was justice. Maybe this was just revenge dressed up in smarter clothes. Maybe they were the same thing. He thought about calling Rick again, just to let him know he was still breathing, but stopped himself. Rick would ask questions he wasn't ready to answer. Questions like, what now? Or, when are you coming back? Or worse, do you forgive her? And Logan didn't know what he'd say. He wasn't sure forgiveness was even on the table anymore. He zipped up his bag, tucked the notebook inside, and slipped on his jacket. The motel manager had mentioned a diner a few blocks down that stayed open late, and he figured he'd need coffee to keep writing. He walked out into the night, the cold air biting at his skin, and didn't look back. Maybe one day I'll come back. Or maybe I'll disappear so hard she won't even remember my name. Either way, she'll never open that safe without remembering who she really lost. Because some things you can't laminate. Some absences you can't cover up with fresh paint and fake smiles. And some kids? They don't run away. They escape.